Imagine a mysterious gray dog appearing out of nowhere to save a priest from assassins, then vanishing without a trace. Picture a poor farmer's son who could read souls and multiply food to feed hungry children. What if I told you these extraordinary events were just small parts of one of the most remarkable stories in Catholic history? The life of Saint John Bosco, who transformed the lives of countless abandoned youth and built a worldwide movement that continues growing 200 years later. Let me introduce you to the saint who forever changed how we work with young people. The Miracles and Prophecies of Saint John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Adrian Fonseca. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In early 1800s Italy, a perfect storm was brewing. The Industrial Revolution drew thousands of young people into cities, leaving them homeless and hopeless. Traditional education methods weren't working. The Catholic Church was facing unprecedented challenges from Masonic forces. Into this chaos stepped one extraordinary priest with an innovative solution that would forever change youth ministry and education. Today, we're exploring the incredible journey of Saint John Bosco, from his prophetic childhood dreams to building a worldwide movement that continues transforming lives. We'll witness miracles, encounter mysterious protectors, and discover an approach to education built on love of souls instead of fear. This overview will introduce you to Don Bosco's remarkable story, but there is so much more to explore. Each aspect we touch on today, his prophecies, educational method, mystical gifts, and worldwide mission, reveals fascinating details that we'll explore in future videos. Whether you're discovering Don Bosco for the first time or already know parts of his story, prepare to be amazed by one of the most influential saints of modern times. Let me know in the comments if you've ever heard of Don Bosco before, or if this is your first time learning about this remarkable saint. The making of a saint. The early life of Saint John Bosco, 1815 to 1841. On August 16, 1815, as Napoleon Bonaparte began his exile in St. Helena, John Melchior Bosco was born in the small farming village of Becci, near Turin, Italy. Born to humble peasant farmers, Francisco Bosco and Margareta Ochiena, known affectionately as Mama Margaret. His early life was marked by hardship when his father died in 1817, leaving Margaret to raise three boys alone: Anthony from Francisco's first marriage, Joseph, and young John. Despite their poverty, Margaret was a woman of profound faith who deeply influenced her youngest son's spiritual formation. She taught him, "God gave you life, expecting you to make good use of it." This maternal wisdom would shape his future ministry. John had a prophetic dream at the age of 9 that would define his life's mission. In this vision, he found himself among fighting boys who were cursing. As he tried to stop them with his fists, a mysterious man appeared, saying, "Not with blows, but with gentleness and charity must you draw these friends to the path of virtue." Then a noble lady appeared, telling him, "Make yourself humble, strong, and robust. At the proper time, you will understand everything." This dream would recur throughout his life, growing clearer in meaning as his vocation developed. Young John showed remarkable initiative in pursuing his calling. He would attend fairs to watch jugglers and acrobats, carefully studying their tricks. After mastering these skills, he would put on the shows for local children, following each performance with a recitation of the Sunday sermon and prayers. Through these early experiences, he discovered how to use entertainment to draw young people to God. A significant turning point came when he met Don Colosso, the priest at Meraldo, whom he called his guardian angel. After hearing young John repeat from memory 2 sermons delivered at a mission in Becci in 1826, Don Colosso took an interest in the boy. When John explained his desire to become a priest, quote, "in order to instruct the many youths who get into wrongdoing and evil ways, because no one is interested in them," end quote, Don Colosso began giving him lessons and found him to be a very apt pupil. Though Don Colosso died just a year later, his influence was pivotal in John's development. At 15, John attended the public school at Castelnuovo, having to walk from Becce twice daily, a 10-mile journey, as he could not afford to buy a midday meal. A tailor named Roberto at Castelnuovo eventually housed him, teaching him the tailoring trade, and as Roberto was also the choir master at the parish church, taught him plain chant. John learned to play the violin and harmonium, eventually becoming qualified as an organist. He gained varied work experience, spending time in Savio's ironworking shop, learning the mechanic's craft, living with a restaurant keeper named Pianta, where he became so skilled at confectionery that he was offered a partnership, which he of course refused, and at Cherry learning shoemaking. This diverse knowledge of trades and his understanding of artisan lives would prove invaluable in his future work. When John entered the seminary, his family was so poor that priests and parishioners had to help provide his clerical outfit. Despite this poverty, he became a model seminarian, known for his solidity, composure, and reliability, so much so that they called him the Father. His holiness grew significantly through his friendship with Luigi Comolo, a saintly fellow student who died in 1839 before reaching 22 years of age. After death, Comolo appeared to John in a vision of brilliant light, declaring, "Bosco! Bosco! Bosco! I am saved!" On June 5, 1841, John Bosco was ordained to the priesthood. At his first Mass celebrated at the Church of St. Francis of Assisi in Turin, he made a prayer that would define his ministry. He asked for, quote, "the power of persuasion to be able to do good to souls," end quote. His mother's words to him that day proved prophetic. "You are a priest. In saying Mass henceforward, you are then nearest to Jesus Christ. Remember, however, that to begin to say Mass means to begin to suffer. You will not realize it at once, but little by little, you will see that your mother has told you the truth. I am confident that you will pray for me every day, whether I am living or dead. That is enough for me. Henceforward, think only of the salvation of souls, and don't be troubled in mind about me." From priest to founder, Don Bosco's path to the Salesian Society, 1841 to 1859. Don Bosco began his ministry in Turin during a critical period of social upheaval. The Industrial Revolution had drawn thousands of young people to the city seeking work, leaving many to fend for themselves, swelling the ranks of the unemployed and homeless. An assistant chaplain at the Convito Ecclesiastico, where he continued his theological studies, he witnessed the plight of these vulnerable youth firsthand. A pivotal moment came on December 8, 1841, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. While preparing for Mass, Don Bosco met Bartholomew Gorelli, a young orphan whom the sacristan was about to chase from the church. Discovering that Gorelli couldn't read, write, or even make the sign of the cross, Don Bosco began teaching him catechism. Soon Gorelli brought other boys, and the Oratory was born. Don Bosco sought out these street boys, apprentices, chimney sweeps, and bricklayers in workplaces, prisons, and marketplaces. Using his skills as a juggler and acrobat to attract their attention, he would gather them on Sundays for catechism, games, and Mass. His work faced constant challenges as the growing group of boys needed a permanent meeting place. They moved from churches to fields and temporary locations as neighbors complained about the noise. Finally, in 1846, Don Bosco secured a permanent home by leasing a shed from Francis Pinardi in the Valdocco district of Turin. This humble beginning would become the mother house of the Salesian order. That same year, exhausted by his work, Don Bosco fell gravely ill. During his recovery, his mother Margaret came to live with him at the Oratory, becoming a second mother to his boys. Mama Margaret would remain there until she died in 1856, helping to create the family atmosphere that would characterize Salesian education. During this critical time, Don Bosco's devotion to Mary, help of Christians, deepened further, as he attributed his recovery to her maternal protection. The Revolution of 1848 brought new challenges in Italy. Political tensions were high, and Don Bosco faced unjust suspicion from liberals and conservatives, He maintained careful neutrality, focusing instead on expanding the oratory to include night schools, workshops, and a home for orphans. His educational philosophy, which he called the preventative system, emphasized reason, religion, and loving kindness rather than punishment. He insisted that educators should be like fathers among their students, creating an environment of joy and trust. As his work grew, Don Bosco began forming his own collaborators. Several of his early boys showed interest in the priesthood, including Michael Rua, who would become his first successor. In 1854, Don Bosco gathered 4 young men and proposed that they unite to do good works while testing a form of consecrated life. This informal group became the nucleus of the Salesian Society. Throughout this period, Don Bosco continued to be guided by prophetic dreams. In one significant vision, he saw his boys transformed from wild animals into gentle lambs under the guidance of Mary Help of Christians, whose protection would become central to Salesian spirituality. The formal founding of the Salesian Society took place on December 18, 1859, when Don Bosco and 17 others established the Society of St. Francis de Sales. They chose this name to honor the gentle spirit of Francis de Sales and to indicate their commitment to using kindness rather than severity in their work with youth. This marked the transition from local work to something much broader, though formal church approval would take several more years to obtain. During these foundational years, Don Bosco also pioneered practical initiatives for youth welfare, negotiating some of the first apprenticeships contracts in Italy to protect young workers from exploitation. He established printing workshops, taught trades, and wrote popular religious books for the young, earning recognition from both church and civil authorities, despite continued opposition from various quarters. The establishment of the Salesian Society ensured that Don Bosco's work would continue beyond his lifetime. What began with a simple catechism lesson for one poor boy had grown into a religious congregation dedicated to the education and evangelization of youth, guided by his motto, "Give me souls, take away the rest." The final chapter, From Founder to Saint, 1859 to 1888. In establishing the Salesian Society, Don Bosco found an unlikely ally in Urban Ratazzi, the Minister of the Interior, who helped him structure a new kind of religious congregation, compatible with both church and civil law. Members would maintain their civil rights while being religious in the eyes of the church, a new approach that initially faced opposition but ultimately succeeded. In 1864, Pope Pius IX issued Decretum Laudis, Decree of Praise, for the Salesian Society. During this period, the original oratory at Valdoco became a model for other foundations, combining youth centers, schools, churches, and technical workshops. In 1872, with papal encouragement, Don Bosco founded the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians, the Salesian Sisters, with Maria Mazzarello as the first superior, extending the Salesian mission to girls. By 1876, he had established the Salesian Cooperators, enabling lay people to share in the Salesian mission while living in the world. One of Don Bosco's crowning achievements was the construction of the Basilica of Mary Help of Christians in Turin, completed in 1868. Built without initial funds, though countless miraculous donations, it became the spiritual center of the Salesian family. The 1870s saw the movement expand beyond Europe, with the first Salesian missionaries departing for Argentina in 1875, fulfilling Don Bosco's vision of reaching South America, particularly Patagonia. As his health declined, Don Bosco continued working tirelessly. People sought him out for counsel, blessings, and healings. Even skeptics were impressed by his practical achievements in education and social reform. He maintained his focus on preventative education, insisting, quote, "It is not enough to love the young. They must know that they are loved," end quote. In his final months, he received a constant stream of visitors, his spiritual sons and daughters, benefactors, and former students. His last message to his Salesians emphasized the importance of work for youth and devotion to Mary Help of Christians. Don Bosco died on January 31st, 1888. His last words being, "Tell my boys, I await them all in paradise." At the time of his death, the Salesian Society numbered 768 members, working in 64 houses across Europe and South America. Along with hundreds of Salesian sisters and thousands of cooperators, his funeral in Turin drew thousands, with many already acclaiming him as a saint. The church moved quickly to recognize his holiness. He was beatified in 1929 and canonized on Easter Sunday, April 1st, 1934, by Pope Pius XI, who had known him personally. Epilogue: The Extraordinary in the Ordinary. Several remarkable elements of Don Bosco's life deserve special mention beyond the main narrative. Perhaps most intriguing was his mysterious dog Grigio, the Grey One, who appeared unexpectedly numerous times between 1852 and 1866 to protect him from attackers. This large gray dog would materialize when Don Bosco was in danger, escort him safely home, and then disappear. Despite attempts to feed or house it, the dog would vanish until the next time it was needed. The last appearance of Grigio was in 1866 in Liguria, when it guided Don Bosco through treacherous mountain paths during a storm. Don Bosco possessed extraordinary gifts that he used humbly in service of his mission. He had the ability to read consciences, often telling people their sins before confession. He demonstrated prophetic knowledge, predicting deaths and future events with remarkable accuracy. The multiplication of chestnuts and consecrated hosts occurred several times when he needed to feed or give communion to his boys, not to mention bilocations and miraculous healings. However, he never drew attention to these phenomena, seeing them simply as tools for his work. The dream of two columns is worth noting. In this vision from 1862, Don Bosco saw the church as a ship anchored between two pillars, one topped by the Eucharist, the other by Mary, help of Christians. This prophetic dream is often interpreted as describing the church's struggles in modern times and its sources of strength, the Holy Eucharist and Our Lady. Don Bosco was also a prolific writer, producing over 150 works. His Catholic reading series provided affordable religious education for common people. He wrote biographies of exemplary youth, including St. Dominic Savio, one of his students who died at the age of 14 and was later canonized. The phenomenon of bilocation was reported several times in his life, with credible witnesses seeing him simultaneously in different places. While he never spoke of these occurrences, they were well documented by others. After his death, numerous miracles were attributed to his intercession. During the process of his canonization, over 1,000 authenticated testimonies were presented. The speed of his canonization process was remarkable for the time, reflecting both his widespread reputation for holiness and the abundance of miraculous evidence. Don Bosco's story doesn't end here. In fact, we're just getting started. If you've been captivated by his prophecies, intrigued by his miracles, or inspired by his educational approach, you're in the right place. We dive deep into every aspect of his extraordinary life every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hit subscribe and that notification bell right now to join our community of disciples of Don Bosco, discovering how his wisdom remains relevant today. Did the mysterious gray dog capture your imagination? We have a full video exploring all his appearances. Fascinated by Don Bosco's prophetic dreams? We produced multiple episodes breaking them down. Every story, every miracle, every aspect of his extraordinary educational method. We explore it all. Don't miss out on these incredible stories. Like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear about this remarkable saint. Join the conversation below. I would love to know which of Don Bosco's story resonated most with you, and what you'd like to learn more about in future videos. From a humble farm in northern Italy to becoming one of the most influential saints in modern times, Don Bosco's extraordinary journey reminds us that with faith, dedication, and divine providence, seemingly impossible dreams can become reality. Throughout our exploration today, we've witnessed how his childhood vision became a transformative movement, how his innovative approach reformed educational methods, and how supernatural gifts served his mission to save souls. Each aspect we've touched on today, from his prophetic dreams to the mysterious Grigio, from his educational methods to his remarkable miracles, has its own fascinating story that we explore in depth on our channel. If you're intrigued by any particular part of Don Bosco's life, you'll find multiple videos in our library diving deep into these topics. Don Bosco's life offers us timeless lessons that love must precede learning, that joy and holiness go hand in hand, and that gentleness achieves more than force ever could. Perhaps most importantly, he showed us that extraordinary holiness often works through ordinary means: teaching, playing, working, and simply being present to those in need. What aspect of Don Bosco's story did you like the most? Was it his unwavering trust in divine providence, his innovative approach to education, or perhaps his extraordinary spiritual gifts? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear which elements of his story speaks to your heart. If you're new here, dive into our extensive collection of videos exploring every fascinating aspect of Don Bosco's life and legacy. And if you've been inspired by his story, share it with someone who could benefit from his examples today. Saint John Bosco, pray for us. May God bless you, and Mary, help of Christians, keep you under her mantle. God love you.